Welcome to MaxsGarajMahal. We're here playing with, wrong word, working on the Hustler Super Z that has intermittent starting problems. Turn the key, nothing. Turn the key, turn the key, turn the key. All of a sudden, it wants to start. Now, everybody seems to have had this problem, has gone several different ways to figure out the problem. So, in order to get this little starter motor off of that lawnmower, and as you can see, the thing is just nearly brand new looking, and it is dated. This happens to be September 28th maybe of 2020, and this was manufactured, I don't know when it was installed, but it was manufactured in June of 18, and it looks brand new. Now I've wiped it down some because it's so nasty to handle, but as you can see here on these surfaces, right here the mounting surfaces, it looks as though it was sort of moving around. However, this thing was tighter than Dick's hat band, and part of that could be is the bolt hole is quite a bit larger. Let me grab a bolt, mounting bolt, than the actual mounting bolt itself. That, of course, would allow it to. So what I may try to do is sleeve this somehow so that it doesn't wobble around like that, because it does look as if this is not making a great contact here. Now I did go ahead and put an external ground on it. As a matter of fact, I used a 4-gauge stranded wire, in other words a jumper cable, and I went from the ground side of the battery to the engine itself. Didn't make any difference. All of the relay and contacts throughout the machine, both stick switches, safety switches, the seat switch, all of these switches are clean, making excellent contact. Checked them for voltage drop. There was no voltage drop during the start cycle. The ignition switch is clean. It's nearly new, looks like. And when you hit the switch, the connection also gave me a full 12, almost 13 volts when I put the start to the starter motor. So that's not the problem. And we're going to look inside this little puppy and see what we can see. And I'm going to try to set it up here. As soon as I get it set up, I'm going to try to set it where you can see it. And we're going to put the, now I don't have a strong battery right here handy, but what I do have that will work is this little, and you've seen this in a lot of videos, this little charger. That'll put enough amperage to it to test the starter. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it in real quick. And we're going to sort of shortcut this. Let me go ahead and get the camera down here where you can see it. All right, now let's see. Let me flip it around the other way. I'll go ahead and test it first, and then we'll see if we can get it where you can see the starter bendix running in and out. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to ground the case first. Then what we're concerned with now, we want to go ahead and check the bendix and solenoid, see if the solenoid is kicking the bendix in. Boy, it's doing a great job on that. Okay, so now what we want to find out is the little starter motor going to turn okay. Well, it sounds okay. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and pop this puppy apart. And let me get this out of the way where I don't have to disconnect and connect that cord while we're working on it. And let's put the starter motor right here. Let's see if you can see that. Get this a little more stable for you. Pardon me while I play with your camera. Okay, notice this little drain hose here is at the bottom of the starter, because the starter motor sits on here like this, and this little hose is at the bottom. All right, so what I've done is I've scratched a mark across the end here, right here, as well as from here to here to line this back up. And just for the heck of it, I put another one on the opposite side, and there's no way you can screw that up. So let's do this. Let's go ahead, let me get back over here and see if you can still see that. All right, now then. Can you see my belly? That's the most important thing. All right, let me zoom you in a little bit. How's that, ladies and gentlemen? Yeah, there's actually some ladies who watch this channel. I can't believe it. I don't know why they do that. But anyway, all right, so we're going to go ahead and remove the plate retainer screws first. Then we're going to remove the long bolts that holds the starter completely together. And what this does, this holds the plate, the housing, which this holds your fields, this holds your magnets, which are your fields. Take that back, they might not be your fields, but anyway. And that holds it to the starter nose. So let's get this off first. And I tell you what, I'm going to be transparent here. I did pop this off yesterday for a moment just to look inside, see how bad it was. And I did put a little grease on this side over here after I washed it up. I wanted to test my little ultrasonic cleaner, so I dropped it in there. It doesn't look any different than it did, to be honest with you, because all I had in it was just a little bit of Palmolive soap. So let's look inside here. I think it looks pretty nasty inside, doesn't it? It looks corroded in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean this sucker up and see if we can't make it work a little bit better. What we are going to do while we got this thing apart, you have 4 brushes in here that runs on this commutator. So while we have the housing off, we're going to go ahead and clean that commutator up. We're going to clean up those brushes, and after we get it apart, we'll see how it's been sitting on there. If those brushes are not sitting good and flat, then that would be a problem for the starter wanting to turn full speed. So let's see what we can do about getting this thing apart. And now we're not going to do this like I would if we weren't on camera. I would actually do this a little differently, but I'm trying to get it where you can see what I'm doing here. And let's see here if you can see that. Okay, I'm going to sort of do this like another fella did. And this is not the way to go about this. I normally would just pull the whole housing off, and I may go ahead and do that anyway. Hang on a second. Let's see if we can't get this out of the way. Then if that works out for us. Wouldn't you know it? All right, hang on just a moment. Let me go get the proper tool and I'll be right back. Okay, proper tool in hand. So let's go ahead and remove this nut right here. And the bad thing about this is that stud could turn. We would not want that. So we'd rather use the impact and pop it loose rather than an end wrench. By the way, you notice I'm doing this really old school where, y'all remember, are any of you old enough to remember back when people used to get their hands dirty? So I just thought I'd maybe demonstrate the art of getting your hands dirty here. All right, now then, you can actually remove this housing all at once with the brush attachment in place. Brushes look plenty long enough. Boy, those magnets are nice and strong. She's pretty down inside, so all the way down here it looks really good. And it appears, for the most part, that the brushes are setting fairly flat, although there is a bit of looks like one of them may be a little bit I don't think it's really floating. Let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and take this off in order to pull this drive all out at one time. So bear with me, let me get all the tools for that real quickly and we'll be back in just a moment. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and pop this off. Sorry about that, guys. I know you don't know this, but I had to stop, run over and take care of well, at least diagnose the problem of an HVAC system for a person that aren't able to take care of themselves. So sometimes that happens quite a bit often around here, actually. So, all right, this part right here is where the fun begins, because getting it back in is a lot more fun than take that out. All right, so this is the way a solenoid works. When you put or excite this post right here, this is going to slam that sucker out because the points makes contact and shoots that puppy out there. So there you go. And that sucker's heavy also. Then you can take this little rascal right here, and this should slide right out, because this is all that's holding that sucker back there where it belongs. And this just slides right out here like this. We'll make sure that's all in good shape and has the proper amount of grease on it and all that stuff. But I also want to stay. It's out of there now. I want to make sure that we get this surface cleaned and this bushing. I want to make sure it's good and lubricated. Well, it ain't going to fall out of there either, is it? It's got a little seal in there to keep oil out of it, I guess. There we go. So, here we are right here. This is your starter drive or starter Bendix. And yeah, that's pretty dry right there, guys. So a little bit of lubrication, cleaning on this thing should have it up and running. So let me turn this thing off. I'm going to get some stuff to do that with. All right, there's two different methods you can do that. Well, there's lots of different methods you can use. You can take rubbing alcohol. This is 70%. You can get that as high as 90%. And what you really want to do is clean this surface and check it. Make sure it's not irregular or has any kind of problems. And as you can see, that one really looks nice. And you can see that it's not exactly perfect because it's been running dry. So we want to clean that. You can also use something like a carbon throttle body cleaner, which does a nice job. We're going to go ahead and clean all this, even though there's really nothing wrong with it. No rust on it or anything like that, which doesn't affect that actually, because it's just a, but we do want to lubricate. We do want to lubricate this right here as well, so that this moves back and forth freely. And it's doing a really nice job. So, and it doesn't have any slack sideways, which is good. So we're going to put a light coat of grease on it, and that'll make that sucker run a little smoother. And as you can see down here now, as I already told you earlier in the film, that I did put a little grease on this in here yesterday, just while I was looking over the inside of it. I hadn't taken it apart, as you could see, but I did want to take a look just to see if the brushes were hitting on it nice and squarely. And as you can see here, it's hitting a pretty good lick across there, so we're in good shape with that. And we are going to go ahead and clean it, and we're going to sand that lightly. We're also going to clean the brushes. Here is the yoke that makes the, get this way, and that makes the Bendix slide in and out as it's hit by the solenoid. So we'll clean this up real nicely. look it over, make sure it doesn't have a lot of wear on it. Then we're going to grease her up, reassemble. So hang on. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and hit this real quickly with rub and alcohol, get some of this off real quickly, just so you can get a gist of it. And then we really want to try out our new ultrasonic cleaner, just to see if it'll take the rest of this crap off. It really isn't necessary because, I mean, this is just nylon. And it's going to wipe off real easily. Nylon cleans really, it's plastic. You can call it what it is, nylon, plastic, whatever you want to call it. It's plastic. So that's good and clean. We've got a little spot right down there that for you purists will want all that out of there. So let's get this out right here just so you'll feel better. And even that's really not necessary because we're going to put grease in there and we're going to put on a lawnmower and it's going to go out there and throw dust and dirt and grass clippings and no telling what else in the air. Dog waste, possum, whatever. So anyway, we're going to clean this up best as possible. And by golly, that looks like brand new. It doesn't seem to have hardly any wear on it at all. That's just plumb pretty. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this clean. Make sure we don't lose that. That's going to go back up in here. But we want this bushing in here, way down here. And maybe you can see it if I can get my screwdriver in there. That bushing right there. We want that clean in there. And we'll shoot some of that down in there. And I'll make me a little puddle of it. Get me some paper in there, like this. Turn that around a time or two. Like that. Pull it out, take a look at that paper. Look at that paper, it doesn't look bad at all. See that where it's in there? It's just dry as a bone, guys. So let's get that sucker cleaned up and get her back together and find out if it will start that mower. Because I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I'm really tired of this intermittent stuff. It's not just Kohler that does that, because it's got a Kohler motor on it, as those who've seen these videos before know. So we're going to clean this thing up and make it look good on the inside as it does the outside. We'll be back after we get that done. Okay, now we're going to spray us a little of this white lithium grease in here. It's not going to take much. Promise you that. That stuff, when it dries, or the liquid comes out of it, listen to that. Isn't that pretty? Okay, when that liquid comes out of that, then it's going to look like a white, or sort of off-white solid, which is your grease, and it's going to do a really nice job. We use that stuff on garage doors and all kinds of things, and it'll never set up hard enough that it'll keep that from operating, which is nice. So let's go ahead and get that in place. Let's get us some let's see, I don't get paid for this stuff. This is just old WD-40 Specialist Protective White Lithium Grease. If you have that, that's fine. I've got another couple of brands over there. I use this stuff on everything. It's a high temp disc brake grease from Master Pro Grease. Got this stuff at O'Reilly's Auto Parts. And I've got some stuff from Advanced, but I don't have it. I loaned it out, so I haven't got it back yet. You know how that goes. But anyway, I buy most of my parts at Advanced Auto Parts. And they do me a real nice job. They come up with those discounts, and you know, I got one the other day that was when I bought my filter for the lawnmower over here, the hydraulic filter, it was a 25% discount. And consider parts are already so high, that was nice to have that 25% discount because it makes things go a lot further. And makes your money go further anyway, I'll give you that. So, alright, we've got that ready to go back in there. And we're going to stop and do a couple more things and we'll be right back. Okay, we know most of you guys out there don't have a lathe or anything similar to that to put this on to true this up. And you wouldn't want to take off more than a couple of thousandths anyway. That's about all it's down. So you can take, this is just 220 sandpaper, if you can see that. Okay, all you're going to do is take it, wrap it as far around as possible, and put your hand down on there. We're going to go back and forth. Now, you see the difference in this? How smooth that is now and how much better it looks? Let's give it just another little turn or two. So stuff apparently has been out here so long it's got moisture on it and it's not fun to play with, but anyway. Well, it looks brand new, don't it? Okay, let's wash that up. And that's W-A-R-S-H, wash it up. Okay, that's washed up. Take that dirty rag, wipe it off. Now then, let's go ahead and get this keeper on here. Like that right there. Alright, this little keeper with a little raised ridge in it here goes like this, and it goes down inside this, and that's to keep that keeper ring from popping off. Okay, now then, we're going to go ahead and we're going to grease this thing up here in just a moment, as soon as we figure out which way it goes in there. I believe that's it right there. Just like that. I got a feeling we're going to have to edit some time out of this thing, but we'll do that too. So I'm going to put just a little bit of grease on this sucker right here. Probably really doesn't need any since that's plastic. We're going to put just a little bit in there. We only want it on the bearing surfaces. Okay. Now then. Now quit that. I'm trying to get this where y'all can see it, but that may be a little more difficult than I want to try to attempt. So anyway, we're going to get that thing over there. We're going to push this through the seal. Get that lined up with that hole. Now then, let's see if I can push that back and forth. So it has to be pulled, so let me grab something to pull it with. All right, I have to grab a tool to pull it with. Be right back. Okay, so we've slid the housing down, which you've got 4 brushes in here as we're aware of. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to push these brushes in and slide the brush holder down over the armature. And then we have put a little grease in the end here, as you can see, it's red. A little grease in there. Put that little bushing in. Slide this puppy right on here, like this. Use these two little screws right here to line that up. Because you want your brushes evenly spaced and your bushing evenly spaced. And that's what's going to do that. Then we're going to turn this to line up our marks. So we need this little tool, this little tool. I'm not going to snug them down real tight yet. And one other. Now, we're going to take these little puppies, drop them in here, spin that into place and see if it'll tighten that or screw in. Look at there. Slick as a whistle. Timing marks. Everything's in time. How about that? Now then, we're going to snug this. What all I was using that for? That wasn't it. Alright. Now, I know what I was using it for, but anyway. Now we're going to put this sucker right on here. Get this 1/2 inch socket. Snug this puppy like that. Now then, you know what? Let me grab the nut that goes on this. Okay, didn't necessarily find that one. Or did I? No, that's not it. Well, it doesn't matter. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to wipe this grease off my hands, off the table. I'm going to put excess grease there back in the can. Lid on. Wipe that screwdriver off. Grab another towel, wipe my hands. And we're going to put the charger to it again and see what it sounds like this time. Alright. Guys, you're almost done with me. Now then. Alright, remember, you're going to not do that. Don't do that, that's bad. Does not help your charger. Alright, we're going to turn this thing around where we can get the nose ground on it here. Now then, we're going to take the hot. Remember what we're going to do? We're going to excite the solenoid first. Check it out. That thing's fast. Then we want to check, make sure the starter's going to turn. Got a little tight there, so I'll have to figure out what I got out of line. Alright, so let me shut this thing off. I will figure that out real quickly. Bring you back. Okay, so we're going to test this for you again on the before we put it back on the unit here. So we've got hot to the solenoid, top post. We've got ground to the battery body, hot to the battery, and we're using the battery this time, so the charger, and ground. So now what we're going to do is we're going to excite the solenoid. Lost my hot there, but that's okay. Now we're going to run the solenoid and the starter at the same time. Woo! Little wire is not big enough. Okay, so that concludes the getting the starter motor off and ready to go. We may include the starting the engine after we get the starter motor back home. We're not going to film all that because you don't want to hear all the cussing. You don't want to hear all the cussing because there's going to be some, I can tell you right now. You have to, look here, motor, if you can see it, is loose. And that sucker, it's just sitting on the frame right now. So consequently, you have to remove the motor, basically all, but lifted it out to get the starter motor out because you have to have enough room. It sets up underneath the fender mount and the seat retention bar there. So it really is a problem to get in and out. So consequently, that I don't really think you want to see that because everything you take a starter off and put it back on, if it's not identical each time, the unit is going to have a different method of remove and replace. So we're not going to show you that, but we're going to get it on there and we'll come back and start the little tractor with it. All right, see you shortly. Okay, just want to finish up this starter motor refresh thing here. And as you noticed in the video, we did refresh the starter and that starter works perfectly. The problem is we still have a wiring problem in the old Hustler Super Z, and we've everything tests perfect in this thing, by the way, guys. Everything tests absolutely perfect. Wiring harness tests good. There's no voltage drops that we can find, but when the starter motor don't turn over, then there's a problem. So what we decided to do is we decided to take the only wire I had this size. That's a lovely shade of green, if you like green. So what we did was we tied this around the starter motor terminal that is the exciter terminal for the starter solenoid. And that goes through the wiring harness and goes directly down, looks just like this. I think it's got a couple of these too in there. Goes down to the starter exciter terminal on the solenoid. So we tied this around that. We took it down to the starter solenoid. We put one of these on this end, and on this end we just tied it around the terminal and twisted it real tight so it couldn't short out against anything else. And guess what? Did this. Whoa, ain't that nice? Now, so we took this end off, routed the wire through here because we're going to run it like that temporarily, and then we left this end on the starter solenoid just like that. All right, I'm trying to see if you can see what I see. All right, just like that. So then we came up here to this end and we naturally cut the excess off because we routed it through and tied it up real nicely so it can't get into something else and short it out. I'll show you that in just a moment. But then I took a set of side cutters and I cut this red insulation off. And then we pulled, let me see if I can tilt you down here where you can see it. We took, are we getting there yet? Getting pretty close. All right, here we go. So let's see, do I need to, maybe I need to zero you in a little bit tighter than that too. All right. How's that right there, boys and girls? Okay, so as you can see here, I removed with the string leaf pulled off the starter solenoid. I removed this wire, which is the red wire with black, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's red with a black tracer on it. And that's what it is down there at the starter motor. So we removed it from this end, removed it from that end. And then we took this little connector right here and we removed this piece of sheathing, put it on here on this green wire, and then we put this connector back on, pushed the green wire up inside onto that terminal. And as you can see, she just fires right up. There's no hesitation. The starter motor works perfect. So we're going to run it like that because we have a lot of other things going on. We'll come back. Then we're going to take this red wire with the black tracer out of this harness and replace that wire, because we've traced it several times. It still shows there's zero loss of voltage or amperage down to that starter motor. However, it wouldn't do a stinking thing before I took the starter off, wouldn't do anything after I put it back on. So that proves that there's a problem right here. All the switches proved to be good. We've jumped them. We've gone through those. Everything seems to be working perfectly, but we just weren't getting. And I did talk to No Boy, or actually watched No Boy's video that showed me that no more than 275 ohms of loss would keep the starter from engaging. So somewhere between here and there, we've got a rub spot in the wire. So we're going to have to eliminate that wire and replace it with a new one. So that does bring to a conclusion the starter motor refresh. And as you can see, the starter motor didn't really need a whole lot. We just polished the commutator. We cleaned up the brushes, which all they really needed was just washed off. We put grease in both bushings, and we greased up the Bendix yoke that pushes that back and forth, and it seems to be working perfectly. So we do appreciate you guys coming by Max's Garage Mahal. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, hit that like button, hit that notification button, and all you can do is just share. That'd be fine. Just share these videos. We appreciate that. So here at Max's Garage Mahal, we want you to please, y'all come back, see us now, you hear?